Meeting started.
This meeting is being recorded, friends, just so everyone is aware. We can send it out to Don and Denny afterwards.
And so the first thing, a motion to approve the March minutes, anybody? Make a motion.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Oh, so the March meeting minutes are approved. And turn it over to you, Ashley, to
All right,
run through the agenda.
so we've obviously got some committee updates. We'll do March and April follow-up. We're gonna go through the citing process when we suggested pathways. We'll go through some budgeting and funding, some educational stuff, MMP goals, which I'm hoping we can spend the majority of our time on. Looking for approval so we can kind of get those drafted into the plan. We're gonna have several drafts, so whatever we approve today will be reworked anyways. And then committee feedback, but I'll go ahead and do roll call. So Jana Steffel is not here yet, but she is on her way. Ashley McMurray, I'm here. Lindsay Walker.
Present.
Alan,
Here.
Caroline,
Here.
Chris,
Here.
Darcy, here. Denny is absent. Don Mapes is absent. Doug,
Here.
Kevin Donner is absent. He was supposed to be virtual, so we'll call him absent for now. And then Stephanie here. Perfect. All right. So just a couple of committee updates. I'm sure if you've been following the kind of news in Petoskey, Denny Kaiser is resigning as the Bear Creek Township Supervisor, which means he will have to resign from this board. I'll have a conversation with him. We'll get a formal letter of resignation. Whomever is appointed, the new Township Supervisor will be appointed to that role. It'll go before the Board of Commissioners for approval, and then they will join us. So I don't know how long that seat will be vacant or how long Denny can remain on the MMPC until that appointment is filled. I'm not entirely sure how that works. But I will look into that and I'll have a conversation with Denny because he may just need to step back, which is totally fine. So I'm sure during the month of April, everybody here got to enjoy the great flood of the spring of 2026. And so I just wanted to touch base really quick about what we as the department did, because I know that storm debris management had been discussed as something that the committee was interested in. So due to the recent flooding, our administration came over to our department and said, what can you guys do? You already have a cleanup voucher for townships. If they want to participate, they can get a voucher for 1 yard of bulky waste to bring into our facility. The township pays for it. So we designed the flood voucher program after the cleanup voucher program. So the vouchers are worth 2 cubic yards, so they're valued at $72 a voucher. Any resident in Emmet County that suffered flooding can come into our office to pick up a voucher. They just need to provide proof of address. So a driver's license. If they own more than one home, we've asked for, GIS mapping, maybe a register or a deed if they have it. Administration wanted to keep it pretty flexible though in that regard. So residents are welcome to bring in any flood damaged material for our facility for free right now. The program was funded through the Petoskey Harbor Springs Area Community Foundation. They funded us $26,000 to cover 300 vouchers. And they said if we blow through them and we need more funding, just to let them know. They're really happy to be providing the assistance directly to residents. So I thought that was pretty exciting. And then 9 and 10 News and 7 and 4 did a little blip on it. I don't know if you saw it. It was on the news. It was about one of their hot minute 1 minute hot takes that they did. So they came out to the facility, did a brief interview, and away that went. We did not push the advertising for it last week just because we were all out of the office down at the Michigan Recycling Coalition conference. So now that we're back this week, we're going to go ahead and push advertisement again, especially with all of the recent rain we've had.
They need the owl in the other room. Will we still be able to, can Stephanie still hear? If we are to remove that with one of the laptops?
I think so. Yeah, I think we're in a small enough space.
Okay.
All right, hold on, friends. We're gonna have some technical difficulties. Stephanie, we're gonna lose our owl, so let me know if you have any issues hearing me.
Okay.
What are you connected to? I don't know.
So many cables.
Does this go to this?
Here, can I grab this?
Go for this, so this is gonna be on class.
Oh, you disconnected me. Docking station.
Someone's gotta go.
It was this one.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, so we're back. Stephanie, folks that are virtual, can you still hear us? Okay.
Yep. Yep, loud and clear.
Oh, no.
I talk loud enough.
From home, from home.
I just love when things like this happen. Audio, because we've lost our owl. Speaker. I'm not gonna put my camera back on because you don't need to see my mean mug. Stephanie, can you hear us now?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay, so it's just gonna, the audio unfortunately is gonna be coming from my computer, so good thing Elisa and I are doing most of the talking today, so that's okay. Okay, so anyway, back to the flood voucher program. It's going to run through, I think July 1st is when we decided we were going to kind of do a reassessment after Memorial Day weekend. Once the seasonal folks make their way up here to assess damage at their cottages, we're going to open it up for second vouchers to households. Right now it's limited to 1 voucher per household. So I think we've gone through about 70 vouchers at this point. So as soon as the holiday folks get up here and folks can start assessing more damage, we'll open it up for second vouchers just because we want it to be as easy as possible for residents to do cleanup. We don't want anything to end up where it's not supposed to. Do you guys have any questions about the voucher program? I figured it would be something that we can include in the appendices under the storm debris management, but this is what Emmet County is doing. I don't know what Sheboygan County did or if they're doing anything for their residents, so.
We have a meeting with them today with the Sheboygan County.
Yes. Yep, we have a Sheboygan Materials Management Planning Committee meeting this afternoon.
I met them last week.
Are they doing dumpsters at the fairgrounds?
They have drop-off locations. They're determining which ones. We've already done work with Waverly Township, and there's a couple others that they're gonna do drop-off locations at.
Okay, cool. Well, I'm glad they're doing something. So yeah, I just wanted to provide an update on that because I thought that was pretty cool. And then, I don't know if anybody on the committee has any updates that they wanted to share. I know, Lindsay, I didn't know, do you want to talk about the habitat storage now or right before we talk about the special materials?
I mean, that's kind of a larger kind of situation in our community, and I kind of look at it as a potential opportunity. So the Habitat for Humanity resource, both the Sheboygan is closing this month and consolidating all of their operations down to Petoskey. And then by the end of June, the Petoskey Habitat for Humanity is closing their restore. So, you know, we've always kind of looked at them as like that opportunity in terms of construction, material, reuse economy. And so if they're closing, the only opportunities for reuse that exist right now are through like a thrift store system, right? Or Facebook Marketplace and those kind of like sharing apps. So maybe this is a great opportunity to really pitch the need for a location, a consolidated location of reuse. Yeah.
I mean, I think the reason Emmet County did not move forward more assertively when the reuse center was not wanting to take business away from the restores. There had been some talk about partnering in some way, and we even did a pilot of allowing materials to collect at the transfer station, and then they would come and get what they thought they could sell. But I do think this does. Yeah, so it's interesting that like the main reason why we didn't move forward, back, a decade or more ago, was for that very reason, and now with them closing. I think there's no question you will see more go to landfill without that service available as a place for people to bring things.
Does anybody know their struggle?
I think, didn't they talk about staffing
Staffing?
issues?
Sales are more prevalent than in-person shopping. That's one of the other items they mentioned.
It seems like it's been like the materials they handle have been dwindling over
Yeah.
the years anyway. Like I stopped in there looking, for pieces of whatever plywood or something, and they don't have any.
Right, because now they went from that big space where they were like a building,
Right.
supply company infrastructure, then to a smaller space, and really, they're probably honing in on their operations on the construction of homes, which is really what they do, and the development in Alanson, so, I guess just the numbers weren't really adding up.
That's a big loss.
All the more reason for us to have a reuse center. Just
Yeah.
collect all of that
Yeah,
material.
great opportunity.
Might have to bump that, yeah.
Because I was at the home show and the 49740
Preservation.
Preservation group was in the booth right in front of me at the home show at the college back in March. And Karen Offield was asking me all kinds of questions. And she's a pretty well-known philanthropic human being. And she was like about ready to write a check. She's like, what do you need for a reuse center? Like, give me like numbers. Like, what are you talking about in terms of, because we have identified ourselves as being like the ideal location, like a drop-off center, all in one. And I'm like, well, it's about a capital improvement plan. It's about expansion of our facility. It's about a traffic flow study of how people move in and out of our facility. So it's not quite as big as like writing a $2 million check right now.
But soon,
It would go a long way.
yeah. We can secure some legal funding with that. Bada boom, bada bing.
I mean, and that's where these dreams come to fruition as we get them in our plan. And as that evolves, we get our dreams out on our materials management plan, and that becomes reality and phased in. Okay.
The other thing I'll note is that we brought that gentleman in from that one county in Minnesota that has a reuse center with their transfer station. I attended Minnesota's statewide annual conference this past March and toured another 2 of those, but many county DPWs have transfer stations with reuse centers attached. So it is a best practice throughout the state, and there'd be some great resources to draw upon as we go forward with planning for that.
Yeah. Partnered with model policy, which Minnesota is like policy central of the Midwest.
They do some.
All right, that was
Is it worth some effort to keep Karen Offield in the loop?
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Preservation
Her
Corner, absolutely.
associate Lisa Morris, who she
Mhm.
attended a couple meetings recently, so she wanted to come today, but she had a conflict, but anyway, it seems like that'd be worthwhile to keep.
And keep them in the loop and like, hey, 49740, let's get a tour of the transfer station. Let's bring you in on a tour on a day when we're like, all that C and D's coming in hot and heavy in every trailer and like.
That's everything.
This contractor has been built for C and D. Yeah, those relationship building strategies and keeping close. Yeah.
Did anybody else have any committee updates they wanted to share? Just figure I'd make sure I was including that.
Carolyn, I was a little bit curious. I know that the tribe is offering to tribal citizens about a $650 reimbursable stipend for anything that's related to the storm of last year, but maybe also the flooding this year. So is there any opportunities for compatibility and like maybe presenting before tribal council about our flood voucher program with Emmet County and any opportunities for collaboration or cooperation there?
I think that's possible.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll reach out and find out. That may require like a little presentation to tribal council
Okay.
around that, if anyone is willing to do that. I can I can make that request. Okay, say that.
And Sheila was at Michigan Recycling Coalition, your colleague, your staff person, representing LPB's environmental department. So it was great to have her as a colleague down there and going on tours and kind of, getting to know people in the industry. So I was delighted to have her there, and we enjoyed each other's time together. So
Good. Yeah, I know she always looks forward to that conference, and I was hoping to go as well, but just wasn't able to this year. But yeah, it sounds like it was a really great event.
I would share that we toured the Kalamazoo Household Hazardous Waste Collection site, which they've vastly outgrown. I can't remember the
In a very
volumes that
short
they
amount
were
of time.
taking in, but the footprint was less than 4,000 square feet, and I think they're taking in like 400,000 pounds of HHW materials annually, and so staging and shipping is becoming a big issue of the material down there, and learning about how the program was funded. So it's a household tax. It's in their annual taxes and fees. She didn't have numbers about what each township pays or charges their residents to utilize the service, but that is why it's free for residents in Kalamazoo County to utilize the program. So something to keep in mind as we kind of look at our own HHW program and the funding mechanism behind it, because spending $60,000 to $90,000 a year hosting events is expensive. So
The other thing I thought was interesting is she said that Emmet County and Kalamazoo County were the only two that do a CSQG program for small commercial generators of hazardous waste. I had no idea.
yeah, I didn't realize that
it's
Emmet.
only residential for everybody else.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
No one else was like small business.
So
So commercial entities are responsible for finding their own disposal methods.
mhm.
Yeah.
except for Emmet County in
And it was
Kalamazoo.
back in the day when we established that, it was a lot of like learning and hoops to jump through to figure out all those parameters, which is now like, you just do it.
Yeah.
But, realizing that you're one of two in the entire state is pretty incredible
Yeah.
and commendable. Because if anyone, and it's something she brought up on the tour, for a small business to responsibly get rid of their waste and call like an ERG or a drug and lab would be many, many multiple times the price for them to bring it and be charged the cost of proper disposal as part of a drop off.
Did she say what they charge the businesses?
She might have it in my notes. I
Okay.
think she might
Just,
have.
just out of curiosity,
Yeah.
we charge our businesses $2 a pound to bring in their HHW materials on event days.
So that helps to cover some of the costs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Also in Kalamazoo County, I can also mention that we toured their yard waste drop-off site. So they manage a couple of different sites, one for yard waste and brush drop-off that the city DPW manages. They also have adjacent to that some food scrap carts for collection of food scraps, and it's Organicycle is the participating hauler and composter in Grand Rapids. So making that connection, they see a value in establishing food scrap drop-offs in that city for hauling back to their Grand Rapids operations. But the yard waste site where all the leaves are being dropped off is actually, the partnership is with Morgan's Composting with Dairy Dew in Sears, Michigan. So you think about an economy of scale, they're like pretty far distance. But because Morgan's only accepts leaves and they need sources of carbon to make their dairy dew, they come in and they clean them out every seasonally. They have to have a certain volume there. They do have a windrow turner on site, and the city is responsible for monitoring any contamination and removing that. But what a great public-private partnership. And they come and pick up the leaves. Every once in a while, based on the volume that's on site, and they haul it back in walking floor, 120 yard walking floor trailers to Sears for their dairy dew operation. So kind of an ideal public-private partnership to partner with somebody like Dairy Dew, who's so well known in selling their compost everywhere. So that was another really good example of private-public partnership. We've talked about that on our site as well. We feel like we're a little small our infrastructure for collection and processing of composting really need, our compostables really, we need to invest in our facility, but maybe a public-private partnership is like somebody comes in with the capital investment for an ASP system or a windrow turner and can put down some concrete, $100,000 at a time, concrete padding of our, of what was an existing, township dump. So I get excited when I think about those opportunities for public-private partnerships, but finding that partner who sees the value in what we have going on.
All right. So, did everybody have a chance to take a look at the data memo we sent out 2 weeks in advance?
That's a well.
It's been floating around in my bag. It's highlighted. I have my notes on it. It is a thick memo, yeah.
Thorough.
Okay.
Good info.
Yeah, so if you read through it at any point and have any feedback or questions, feel free to email myself, Noelle, anybody in the office, and I can get those answers for you. It's extremely thorough. So it talks about our recycling rate in there. So in 2023, I believe the recycling rate was 37%. In 2024, it dropped down to 35%. During the Michigan Recycling Coalition Conference, they had a session on MMPs for DPAs. So I sat in on that meeting, and 35% might not sound stellar, but in comparison to other counties in the state, we are far above the average. Ottawa County and Washtenaw County's recycling rate sits at between 16 and 18%. The Central UP Planning Committee, their recycling rate is 2%. So when you look at different numbers across the state, Emmet's leading in the recycling rate. So don't let that 35% deter motivations.
And also MMPs that have not even begun.
Yeah, so Ryan was talking about several of the different regions in the UP having a 2% recycling rate or a 0% recycling rate because they don't have programs. So they're starting from
2%?
0,
Oh.
between 2 and 0%.
Yeah.
Escanaba has a train company that is recycling, I think, rail ties. And so if he includes that number in the region, it bumps it up to 25%. So he said, I have to be careful about what I include in the factoring of the recycling rate because I need an accurate description of what's actually going on. So he actually excluded the train company from the Escanaba recycling rates just because it becomes, skews. So 35% is not bad at all compared to other counties. So
The other thing I'll share from the conference, there are actually 2 sessions on planning. And the first one is in the morning with Ryan and Theo, with Ryan from Central UP Regional Planning District. He's a planner, and Theo, who's working on the Washtenaw County development. And they really went through the whole state provided template and shared a lot of guidance to help with the planning process. And in the afternoon, Matt Nod, a colleague of mine at RS, and I did another session on planning, sort of like ways, sort of like things you can think about to go beyond the basics. So Theo and Ryan really covered we're helping you with guidance to get the plan done and check the boxes. And Matt Nod and I in the afternoon are more what more can you do? Here are some cutting edge things. And Matt Nod's working with Washtenaw County on their plan. So we had this really nice collaboration between what would get presented in the morning and what in the afternoon. And so just so y'all know, we're bringing that into this process to ensure getting all those boxes checked, but also we might in the coming months bring some of those sort of advanced topics, a couple other things from what we presented that might be of interest to this committee or not, but just some things that could be optional to include in the plan.
I would include, so Ryan and Theo are 2 other DPAs in doing the planning for, like Elisa said, Washtenaw and the Central UP. they took the plan format, which Eagle provided, and I believe was 8 pages, and it's the format that they want you to follow when writing your plan, and they broke it out into a 28 page document and went in and filled in like, this is where you can get this information, this is where you can get this information, this is how you should do this. If any of you would like to see that document, I have the living link. It's a Google Doc, so don't go in and make any edits. I don't know if anybody has access to editing right now anyways, but I'd be happy to share that link because I think it's really interesting to see how the plan should be laid out and the types of information that they provided in it.
Yeah, if you can share it with
Yeah.
Matthew Cook, that works.
Yeah.
He's helping all those other towns.
Yeah.
Does it, from your perspective from those meetings, does it look like those other counties are using these tools that are available to them? Does it look like there's going to be kind of, are you gonna see any progress in those other counties with this process? Is that?
Some more than
others.
I think there's quite a range.
Yeah.
Emmet County is, I think, ahead of almost all other counties in the planning process in terms of how far along there, yes. And, you know, there's some that haven't started, there are some that are floundering. And I think there are a number that are underway that are like, oh, I heard this from several people, like, I wish I had this 6 months ago, right? So already have moved on from places like, now we got to look back and see, did we cover all those bases? Did we, you know, here are 3 more topics we didn't even think of. And, you know, here it's in this guidance that, you know, Theo and Ryan put quite a lot of time into really all the nuts and bolts. And so I think, you know, like I said, there might be a couple of things like going through the goals today, but a couple months from now, you know, after, you know, folks that were at the conference sort of took all that in, might say, oh, let's bring this topic up and see if we want to flesh something out in the plan to address it.
And some of the other counties are doing a different approach. Like they've gone through and like the Central UP, they haven't started on any of their goals. They've done everything else first. So they're like, we've created our citing process. Mind you, I think Ryan in the UP has 84 municipalities under his one plan. He's covering a wide region. Is it 6 counties?
I think it is.
I think it's 6 counties under that one plan. And so he took a very different approach. They did the citing process first. They've gone through and done all of like the requirements of the plan, and they haven't started on goals. So whereas we've done kind of goals first, and then we'll build the rest of the plan around those goals to make sure all of those boxes are checked.
Yeah. And it's really, Emmet County sits in such a different place, and that you have so many well-established programs, in that because you run those programs, you have the data. You know, someone like Ryan, Central UP, there's almost nothing going on up there, right? That 2% recycling rate is because there is nothing to count for the most part. And so, you know, I think drawing upon Jim Fry's crawl, walk, run, and we're working with a number of counties in the state, and you know, some counties, they're crawling. Like their goal is like work towards meeting those benchmark recycling standards to get 1 drop site for every 10,000 in our very rural population. And it could take them the full 5 years to get there, right? So it's a really, really different sort of, you know, planning process they're facing.
Yeah, it's hard to find any of the other DPAs that are like in our position. And I'm like, are we doing something wrong? Are we like behind? Like what? And they're like, no, you're just leaps and bounds ahead of like what the state is doing and requiring. So keeping that also in the back of our mind that, yeah, we're a 35-year program that's well established. We already have curbside and drop site. So, because I always worry, I'm like, what are we missing? Waiting for the other shoe to drop, and hearing from other counties that they're just trying to build a drop-off program is like, oh, okay.
And the Eagle recycling specialist for your region, Tracy, said, I don't even have to go to Emmet's meetings. Like there's some, like, they got this.
Yeah.
Just like, I'm going to focus on the ones that are struggling.
We still need
So
Yeah, Tracy's like, I'm calling you for questions.
I thought, like, you should be going to see a doctor to help you.
Are you resting on your laurels? Clearly, we're not.
So all good things. But yeah, so if you have any feedback on the data memo, please feel free to share that with me. I like to capture it.
I'll email you my comments, but one thing that really kind of stood out was like on page 10, 97% of your waste goes to the GFL landfill.
Mhm.
And you're projecting that landfill, this is the one in Hatfield County,
Yep.
It has 8 years of capacity limit.
That's your 50?
It is
Okay.
currently, yeah, working through a possible expansion, but there's already plans in place to divert that waste to one other landfill.
And that other landfill is in.
Can I ask a question around that? Do you, is, municipal solid waste from the Upper Peninsula coming down to Presque County as well? No. Okay.
We, probably 4 or 5 years ago, purchased the landfill adapter from Waste Management, so all the moving trash was getting directed there.
And Dafters in what county is it?
I
Loose?
think it's a school,
Oh, Schoolcraft.
think, I don't have to look, but it's a couple miles south of Brenda.
Thank you. I didn't.
Oh, no, it was just
I always
kind of like,
love your
oh,
comments.
well, I guess you better figure out where else you're gonna put garbage. Something that is interesting.
We got that in.
Yeah,
covered.
okay.
We've got a real.
9 years.
Okay.
It's also the landfill in Leelanau County. I just noticed you don't send anything there. And
That's the
it's
waste
in-
management landfill.
Okay,
Yeah.
it's in the region, I just.
Yeah, so
We're contracted.
we're contracted with GFL.
Oh.
So I believe that's a 10-year contract.
Who signs tenure?
Right.
That was, but
We could negotiate.
I'd like you to know I was still the assistant to the director when that contract was done. I was a peanut in the group here.
So the other option would be waters.
Yeah.
And do you know how much landfill capacity?
I
we
don't
have in
know,
waters?
but I can find out. We are looking at expanding.
There, I think, and I don't know if you were gonna touch on it, Elisa, but there, as we go through the siting process and the suggested pathways, GFL will have to sign a letter, saying that they have the capacity and what their contingency plans are. So,
We usually have those letters templated, ready to go out in the next
Yeah.
week, so those will be going to all the facilities
All
that
the
are required to
facilities.
provide capacity. So just so you know, Ashley, because you're in presentation mode.
Oh, I
those
can't
aren't
see.
Showing up.
oh, here,
So Steph is taking notes, you can take it out of presentation mode. You can see
okay, there we go. You guys just get the full view. You're just lucky I don't have 36 tabs open.
Did you have any more? 'Cause I always cherish your feedback.
Well, I don't know if we have time.
We built time in, so please feel free.
It, this little stuff, but one thought I had was, when you're looking at, so the plant plastics, I know it's a very small amount of plastic you put in, but it's only allowed to be collected at the transfer station from a set amount of time. Have you thought about reaching out to local, horticulture vendors, the, commercial industry, to partner with them, saying like they can be like a little drop-off site for plant plastics? So it saves people the trip to your transfer station. And then I thought also you had sort of a similar partnership with like Ace Hardware where they collect batteries. And that's just not, it's a small part of your program, but it's not really mentioned.
Yeah.
Great. idea.
I love that. What I love about that is one of the best practices is you meet people where they are.
Yeah.
Like if they're going to, Home Depot or Lowe's big garden center, wouldn't it be great if there was a drop
Box.
in for you use plant?
Yeah, I'm sure
Cost
people
in
would do
season.
that. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm one of those people.
Yeah.
Well, and I know like the Mackinac Plant Center, they ask folks to bring back their plant plastics because they reuse them from year to year.
Wilson's Garden Center and Bear Creek Organics both do the same thing. And Wilson's carries the plant plastics remade that we send to Sherman.
Because I did 14,000 plugs 2 weeks ago at the Mackinac Plant Center working with them, and the amount of plastics that they're like any type of like trays that we can get back, they use because the plugs come in sheets of 500, and so you got little itty bitty baby.
Do they have to do anything to like clean or sterilize them or just like spray wash them off?
Yeah, they clean them. Yes, yeah, they clean. Most of the time, depends on the plant. Like flowers typically don't need to be sprayed and cleaned. I know vegetables, some of them are a little more sensitive, and so they like to make sure that the plant plastics have been at least rinsed.
And that's also a shared economy, a reuse economy that we have as well, because like the master gardeners right now this week, they're coming in. They came in yesterday at the gatehouse, and the gatehouse was like, I don't have authorization to let you purge it, to pick from our pile. And so we had to like, next time, just give us a call and we can.
Yeah,
make
because
those
they
arrangements.
just need to be
Exactly.
monitored.
Yeah,
Exactly. You know, like
They're coming in today. You're gonna be out there.
Yeah.
so that's also like a good opportunity for a reuse economy and with the master gardeners and their annual plant sale, for
Yeah.
example.
I love the idea of communicating with the horticulturists in the area.
It's
Like,
like Holly's planting and plucking, where we did that first plant plastic drop off during one of
Okay.
our HHW days. So having that embedded partner that was like, we're generating all this plant plastic, what do we do? And we're like, oh my gosh, we have these neighbors right here. It's kind of like the Marina Shrink Wrap Petoskey plastic story, the plant plastic story of people that are in the business of beautification and providing landscaping plants made locally, and then that closing the loop on a local circular economy story. So I think having them as host sites, modeling the battery drop off is a brilliant idea.
yeah, I mean, because we talked about the batteries and we collected what, 18,000 pounds of batteries last year? Just household, not like car batteries or. So those partnerships that we have with the host sites for the battery collection is huge as well.
So just maybe a section on host sites.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, what?
You got 80 years instead of 8.
It's 8.
You have 80 years?
No, there was a typo in there.
To 8 years with traditional years of planned capacity, but not permitted yet. Is that correct?
It's all permitted.
It's all permitted.
Yes.
You just haven't built those stuff.
It's
So
The size.
the 8 years.
You had 80 years. That's why I just mentioned it.
That's correct.
Yeah.
8 years.
Yeah.
Okay. And then is there further expansion beyond those 8 years available at that landfill?
Not permitted yet.
Not permitted yet. Okay.
But Wexford has at 1,500 tons a day, it has 60 years like capacity remaining.
That's 60.
60.
Wexford at current rates.
And that just that number, that 8 years capacity is based on a current volume number. As that volume increases or decreases, obviously the lifespan increases, decreases. There's always potential of diverting waste away and the years go up.
Okay. Was there anything else?
I'll just leave on.
Okay. All good information though. All right. Moving on then. Again, the feedback form lives, but email works just as well. Okay, so we're going to talk about the NMP citing process again. We're going to swing back in, and I think I'm going to turn this over to oh no, what is this?
The recap of citing.
Oh, the recap of the citing process, right? For March? Is this what this one is? Yeah. So, what we covered, we obviously did a pretty brief overview of the citing process and the requirements under Part 115. We talked briefly, and I also sent out the citing process, the current citing process for Emmet County to all of you and how it works. Exemptions for material utilization facilities and landfills we touched on. Key points, the current process is very well structured. If you did take a chance to review the citing process, slightly repetitive, but I think repetitive is okay when you want things to be sound. Transfer station and landfill capacity is sufficient for the planning period. Again, we'll send that letter, and we'll have contingency plans should something change. And then source separated recycling and organics facilities are not subject to current citing process, and they are handled through local zoning ordinances. So still to discuss is updates to the authorized facilities, the consistency pathways, and the criteria for that. So I'm going to turn it over to Elisa to kind of talk about the citing process and the suggested pathways.
Yes. So, So under our current planning process, we've got landfill, which is not in the county, transfer station, of which there is one of, and recycling compost facilities, which Emmet County also runs. So it doesn't include the drop sites, but the MRF. Currently have stated that unless there was an amendment to the plan in the future, if someone said, we want to build a type 3 landfill in Park Lake Township, they would have to seek a plan amendment and it would go through the siting process. Same thing with any of these others, incinerator, innovation, technologies, facility, or waste diversion center. So this is how it's currently set up.
Or do you want me to go back?
Yeah. Oh, I think Steph wants to jump in. If you, Steph, you want to unmute and
Yep, and I'll talk loudly. I know it's coming from Ashley's computer, so hopefully everyone can hear me. But Ashley, if you want to jump to the next slide. Okay. All right, perfect. So this slide and the next couple of slides are just laying out by facility type what the current pathways are for the siting process for each facility type. And then on the far right column, we have some suggested changes, most of them staying the same. You can see there's some suggested changes for things like our type 1 landfill here. No landfill needed or authorized, given that there's current capacity available. And if a landfill were to be sited in the area that we didn't want to proceed with, then we would need that letter of capacity to verify. We also don't have type 3 landfills or incinerators involved in the plan right now. Those are unauthorized without a plan amendment. No suggested pathway for adding them at this point. So focusing here, these are our disposal facilities. We've got one for a transfer station, both the existing site and a small transfer station, and then the type 2 landfill. Those are your existing facilities with no changes as far as criteria go. All right, and then on this slide here, we've got the recycling and compost facilities. So currently those are handled by local zoning only. They're not directly addressed in the siting process. What we would want to do here is make sure that the local zoning ordinances that are relevant to siting these types of facilities are included in the MMP. This just needs to be a section, as Tracy had confirmed for us, and I think that was the March MMP meeting. And I think, Elisa, you had a note here about sufficient MRF capacity, if you wanted to speak a little more to that.
yeah, so basically, previously in the previous plan, it was just subject to local zoning. But because Emmet County has a MRF, it's serving as a hub and spoke, and you do not want someone else, unlikely, but someone else building a MRF in the county because there's sufficient capacity, you can state that your MRF has sufficient capacity for the planning period, and no MRF is needed or authorized to be cited. So it's leaning on the capacity as a reason to not allow another one to go. So that would be a suggested pathway.
And one other thing that was highlighted during the March MMPC meeting was currently we're not differentiating between the small and large scale source separated and organics facilities. So that's an opportunity to refine the siting process. And then we also have innovative technology facilities here. This is a newer facility type described by Eagle, currently not addressed in the siting process, and this would be another one that would need to be addressed through some changes.
So I do think going back to the compost facilities, I do think that is something where I know Emmet County is at a point assessing what's needed and moving forward with plans and figuring out, capitalization and operation of an enlarged facility to handle the continued growth and interest and potentially a public-private partnership. I do think you'll want to give some thought to whether you want to have allowances for a compost facility in another part of the county other than your location. And if you want a siting process for that, which I would recommend, and again, I would probably consider exempting all the small non-registered, the municipal, yard waste drop-offs from planning or have them just subject to local zoning.
Kind of like the other compost sites that are within the county. Like, I don't think we want to be in charge of, totally telling them what they can and can't do.
Yeah.
Like
You mean
the,
the yard waste drop off?
no, I think of like, the site off of, it's not far from the facility. It's in Harbor area off of Bester.
Yeah.
Yeah, like,
Where the city of Harbor Springs dropped up for your.
no, the compost windrows that are off of Bester Road.
Oh, you're talking about
I don't-
the landscape.
Yeah, like, I don't think that,
Farm.
yeah.
So it's exempt.
So he's exempt. Okay, because I just want to make sure that like we're not totally destroying any.
Existing infrastructure.
Yeah.
And honestly, with the city's collection program, so we pick up the yard waste from the yard waste drop off in the city of Petoskey. But when they contract with the collection, yard waste collection with GFL, and they come along and collect the yard waste April through November, or they do it periodically throughout the season, that goes to a local farmer, and those farmers are exempt because it's on-farm compost
Okay.
use. So we do have a secondary site that was identified by RRS and Nicole Chardwell when we did our 10-county regional study. And so Mishko Ode Farm and Kevin Donner and Brutus is our secondary site. And where you're on, and I don't know if his property he's put into trust with the tribe, but they don't have to follow local zoning regulations being a native sovereign nation. So those are other opportunities for intergovernmental partnership, or excuse me, with an entity like that, but definitely identifying potentially a northern site like Mackinac City. And Kevin's harvesting like the fish waste from the Mackinac City fisheries because that was what he did before. So that's part of his feedstocks. And he's got a new pallet manufacturer in Brutus, and he's getting carbon from there. So, and then American Spoon Foods bringing purges out. So there is an already like quasi small established site. But whether you can justify, once again, development for our northern sector, the redheaded stepchild, because all the economic activity is happening in the southern part of the county, right?
Okay,
Yeah.
so captured local zoning only for municipal yard waste drop-offs, which is current pathway. All existing facilities automatically consistent. This is for yard waste and compost. Farms are already exempt. I would suggest you list, if you already have a secondary site identified as a potential in Brutus, I would identify it in the plan. I would state that it's tribally owned land and it's exempt from zoning, but that it has been identified by Emmet County as a possible partnership in the future. And that would be consistent. And I just made notes on the other things, but you could state that there's interest in a northern location, but it would need to go through a siting process, or would it just be subject to local zoning? Like you're interested in a potential third site, I would actually state it in the plan. Otherwise, in terms of what process you would want it to go through.
And as we go back, and you just mentioned this earlier on the agenda, like there's gonna be opportunities to go back and be like, oh, we forgot to
Yes,
include this.
absolutely.
So in the context of compost, we've done really good about like identifying our site, the kind of the resources that we need to expand and take on more food scraps. And it's all been on like the feedstock development, but the selling of compost and the making sure that our municipalities and our county road commission are using compost in their road construction projects and their reseeding projects and like housing development projects, like working with Tammy Dornenberg and making sure we're getting like 5% organic matter content into the specs for topsoil, which is what is used primarily for these developments. That's something that occurred to me when I was out at this conference 2 weeks ago in Boulder, is like the actual application of our compost. And then once we can make a case for selling out of compost and creating demand, then that's a justification for like, hey, we need to expand this facility, make it more efficient, produce more compost.
Well, I don't know where this would tie into the siting process as well, but when new developments are being made, making sure that they're zoned to include both trash and recycling,
Yes.
bins.
Yeah, so we should I'll just comment first, Stephanie, to help make a note, because this is really another section of the plan. But, consideration of ordinances and like the planning and zoning ordinance, and what are the opportunities to create more end market pull for materials like compost is really, really important. Really, really great best practices, both from ILSR and USCC and Biocycle. Like, there's so many great, and ReFed have great examples of model ordinances. And I think it would be not that difficult to get. I mean, working with Tammy, I think getting the language in your plan to like allow for that and also point to that as a pathway for development is a really, really good idea.
Yeah, thank you. And also based on the study, like RRS did this deep dive data study of like, where are the opportunities for in the municipal, what's going in the municipal solid waste stream and food waste. We knew this, but food waste was like, there's more food waste going to landfill than we originally anticipated. So that data shows like, that's why the seagulls hang out over the transfer station, boys and girls, because that's where all the food waste in Emmet County is going right now.
Speaking of that, was it the state that came out with the gap, or is it RRS that came out with
Yeah.
the gap analysis
First developed it for the state.
for the state? If any of you are interested in that that report,
It's 130 pages. It's
time out. And you can read it based on chapters, like, so you can skip to cardboard, or you could skip to batteries, you could skip to food waste.
It's on the next cycle. It's on the next cycle Michigan website. There's also consumer battery gap analysis. But the thing I'll point out, it's like a year in the making, so the data is 2 years old, but there was a focus this past year on corrugated cardboard commercial opportunities, organics and food scrap opportunity, recovery opportunities, scrap metal, and what else was in there? I'm sure there's more, but like wood waste. Thank you. So there are things by chapters. There's some, just tables and charts. Another thing that was really, really interesting that came out of it, which again, Emmet County is a model for the state, is film plastic is in the top 5 by weight of commercial waste in landfills in Michigan.
Film
plastic.
Think of how light
Ziploc
it
bags.
is. Yeah. But there's so much because everything is wrapped in it.
Right.
Not only each t-shirt in each box, but the boxes on the pallet, like film. And the clean film has ready markets. And so Emmet County is involved in one market, but there are others in the state and beyond. And so it was another sort of call to action of an opportunity, a material of value that there's a lot of the people don't have top of mind. So lots of other takeaways, but
Film plastic was number 2. I was so surprised. I was like,
I'd be curious to see what that weight or volume is in Emmet County, just because we have plastic film
there's
recycling.
so much that we're not capturing.
But I would be curious to know if that is a little bit lower here.
And the cleanliness is so important. So yeah.
Okay, anything else? Steph, anything else you want to touch on here before we go on, or move on to the next slide?
I think we're ready for the next slide.
Okay, great. So this last slide covers waste diversion centers, which I believe Emmet County's drop-off center, super drop-off, counts as a waste diversion center. All the materials that are not accepted in the MRF, the solid waste transfer station, or the compost facility, all of which are permitted separately by Eagle, correct?
Mhm.
You also have a waste diversion center as defined.
But they did not make us register
Nice.
as a waste diversion center.
So I'm curious if that's just for, do you know?
We filled out a general permit, which covered the MRF and everything. So we still had to do a compost one,
Right.
and then the transfer station, and then the MRF, but the MRF one they did as a general, so it covered the large scale.
Interesting.
And they were confused.
And they were very confused
Sure they
because
were.
I submitted all three of those, and then they're like, well, we're just gonna have you fill out a general permit to cover all three. And I was like, yeah, but you want insurance, $20,000 insurances for each separate one, because they never sent those checks back.
Yeah. There's the local teaching the state. No, Eagle.
They didn't know how to categorize us. Ooh, God.
We're such an anomaly. We're over registered.
So I think we'll have to
Yeah,
check in with Eagle, but
Yeah.
clearly you don't need another one. You are serving as that super one-stop drop within the county. If it doesn't count as a waste diversion center, that's fine. But if it does count as permitted under the general permit, that's fine. I think we just have to make sure we have the language right. And I doubt, again, Eagle probably doesn't know.
Yeah.
Like we might be forging a path.
yeah. I
here.
had 3 different answers from 3 different
That's kind of
Eagle
how it is.
specialists, so
They didn't know.
it's fine.
But it's okay. Just so you know, our recommendation is you state that Emmet County does accept the kinds of materials that qualify under a waste diversion center and has the capacity to manage increasing volumes of that over the next 5 years. I don't know if we would, like, I don't know if there's anything as part of a future reuse center that would fall under waste diversion center category, but might want to state something about that as well, especially with the loss of the resource in the future. Might want to state some, claim there, or have it, at least have it consistent with the plan that you are intending to do that. So I don't, do you know, okay, so Steph says here, you only count as a waste diversion center if you've given notice to Eagle that you operate in that capacity. So again, it sounds like there was some back and forth.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So I think that's proposed pathway for a waste diversion center. Scrap yards and hazardous waste centers not applicable.
Would you like me to go back?
Yeah, Steph, are you?
Yeah, I can jump in here. And just a note on the scrapyards and hazardous sites from that previous slide. Those were facilities we had talked about in some of our earlier MMPCs. So I just wanted to call those out as those are not involved in the siting process currently, not planning to involve them now. This slide that we're looking at here is just a brief overview of the criteria that show up in the county's current siting process. We're recommending that you keep the basic, the details about the sites that are on the far left side here through like A, B, through U and T and U. Those are just like the general details about the facilities. Those don't necessarily need to change unless there's something that the county sees as valuable in changing. As far as the updates go, that would be changing any of those pathways that we just looked at, as well as updating any of the references to DEQ with Eagle, updating the permit list with those new facility types, and then any application fee updates that you might consider since the last time the siting process was established.
Stephanie, can you tell me why anaerobic digesters are not part of the siting process?
So they would be considered part of the siting process. We've kind of grouped them here under the recycling and compost sites. But I do think that is another opportunity for it to be broken out further, distinguishing compost versus AD.
Partner with like wastewater treatment plants. Yeah.
I think that's so the facility type, so AD falls under recycling and compost facility stuff.
It is considered a materials utilization facility. So it would be under Part 115, but that's where it gets into the like wastewater treatment, biosolids. Those folks aren't a part of this.
Right.
Thank you.
So I do think that is something to think about. If you see an anaerobic digestion facility as potentially being part of your recovery process for food scraps, in this planning period, and you want to note that, just like noting a second and third possible site for a compost facility, you would want to include it because it would be precluded from the plan. If someone comes to you in 3 years, says, we want a site and AD facility next to Petoskey's wastewater treatment plant, and they're all in favor, and you'll be able to triple the amount of food scraps you take because now you're limited by size or carbon materials or whatever. It would not be consistent with the plan. So you can think about, we can return back to this, of course, but you can think about, would you want that to be allowed, but has to go through the siting process?
For Harbor Springs, because they have so much land around their wastewater treatment plant.
Right. I mean, again, it wouldn't necessarily be advocated or advanced by DPW, but someone could come in like, what's his name? Chad.
Fireworks.
To come in and say, hey, City of Petoskey or Harbor Springs, like, I see a great opportunity here. You want your plan to state how it's going to address the siting of that. And we, of course, can lend some.
Do you bring in any biosolids from other wastewater treatment plants in the region?
Very little.
Okay,
If any.
because everybody's land applying.
I can't say our liquids division might get a little bit, but for the most part, we try to.
What about biosolids in waters? Do you know?
No.
Okay.
Very small amount as well.
That's one of those, we try to steer away from things.
Well, no, and municipalities want to keep that land applied because it's farmers value the organic material, the content, the fertilizer, and it's a way to keep your costs low. Because if we had the landfill in the city of Petoskey, that would be exorbitant expensive, and then our rates would go up, and then people would be mad. Thank you for including. I just wanted to have that anaerobic digestion because I know that conversations is happening in other parts of the state as well. Because food scrap people are like worried that composters aren't going to have enough sources of carbon, and they're like in Oakland County, I know that was a topic of conversation. Don't worry about the carbon. Composters have this figured out, and also you can go AD where you don't need carbon, right?
Yep.
What is that, AD?
Anaerobic digestion, yeah. Create energy from organic material.
So when you see under the updates, we'll do all the updates to get a consistent based on what we've heard. The application fee schedule is something for you to consider as a department in terms of fees for various things, because that probably should be updated. And then in terms of consider adding lists, this is really, I think our recommendation is not consistent with plan would be the first 3. You would need to amend the plan to include them. The bottom 2, I think you might want to consider waste diversion center. Again, just discuss that. I think you and the county can say you have that capacity at your existing site, whether you currently count as one or not. And that anaerobic digestion, I think, is worth some discussion, whether you want to do that now or come back to it at a later meeting.
I have another question about.
I just, before we keep talking about anaerobic digestion, does everybody at the table know what anaerobic digestion is? I know, Darcy, you joined us a little bit later on the committee, so I just want to make sure that everybody has an understanding of anaerobic digestion. Okay, just didn't want anybody to like.
I think there's other considerations taken into account with the digester because there's such a large amount of liquids that come with that. So you have to have a lot of solids to bring into the mix. So you wouldn't want that just anywhere.
No. Well, I think Lindsay was saying is that a lot of them are being paired with wastewater treatment plants.
Yeah. And usually anaerobic digestion, like scaled sizes, are also like on really large, like dairy farms where they're managing the manure and their bedding all in one, and then land. There is considerations and problems with that finished product that Eagle is trying to regulate, or is kind of, there's been some divestment in anaerobic digestion in Michigan because of like this landscape of regulation that really isn't very well articulated, I guess. I don't know how to be.
It's a kind
I don't know how to be different than that. But I wonder about, also because we also have a lot of septic systems, and I'm wondering, I know that septics isn't like it's not a study thing, but in rural communities, septics and like the sludge hammer model of like managing those on site, I'm wondering if that should be something that should be considered, because septic systems and septic leaking, I mean, you probably know about this too as a planner. It's something like John DeMoose on the state level, our elected official, is just like, now all of a sudden I'm like a septic specialist because of all these old septic systems like leaking into water bodies and cottages along the lake. So I'm not really sure where that would fall into that, but just knowing that that's how a lot of human waste is being processed is in these decentralized septic systems.
Yeah, I do know that, I think Michigan is the only state in the Great Lakes that does not have a statewide septic code.
I heard that,
Yeah, so I think that in terms of maintaining the quality of the Great Lakes and what's going on in our state, there have been numerous attempts to get legislation through, and they have not. So,
Does that really come under the auspices of this kind
it
of?
does not.
waste management?
It does not. So I'm just like, I think we can set that aside. I do think there are very, very serious issues with permitting anaerobic digestive digesters in the state of Michigan. The permitting process is broken as far as I'm concerned. And we've lost some really, really great advocates and investors and developers in the state because of that. People aren't giving up, but it's right now it's feeling like an intractable problem at Eagle. So I do think, because there's interest and there's a lot of sophistication in Emmet County in terms of understanding of anaerobic digestion and how it can fit in a food recovery system, I do think it's worth adding as a possibility for public-private partnership or siting. But you would, I think what you want to decide is, do you want to say it has to go through a siting process for consistency and lay that out, or do you want to say it would require a plan amendment to open up the plan, which is a more arduous process? So I think those would be the two pathways. Yeah. So I think give us some thought, staff probably, and we can bring it back to a later meeting unless anyone has any comments now that you want to, or questions for us to address before we bring that back.
Like at your plant, do you have to process your water or any discharge before it's released into the septic system or into like a general
In our Indiana facility.
in your Indiana facility?
Yes.
Because you're using water and that's part of the process, whereas the Petoskey facility doesn't have.
Correct.
Got it.
Okay. Right. Anything else on this slide? Otherwise, I think.
We good then with the citing?
We're good.
So. Oh, my computer's frozen. So in April, we were going to talk about funding and education mechanisms. I think as a department, again, we're pretty well educated on how our program is ran and the different funding opportunities that we have. I know when we first started the committee, we had kind of run through and talked about the different mechanisms that we use to fund our programs. And Jana, I don't know if you want to jump in with me and chat, but so our program, we are an enterprise fund. So most of our revenues come from our fees for services and products. So our sales of recyclables, our contracts with the municipalities for curbside programs, our sales of compost, transfer station revenues, those all fund our program. We do not operate off of general tax dollars. I will say, with that being said, I know that there was a question on any general fund contributions. So in 2020, did we get the new baler in 24?
In 24.
24.
Yeah, at the very end.
So when all of those APR funds came in and each county got the APR funding, we did receive $600,000 of general tax funds to purchase that baler. So I think that that is one of the only contributions we've had in the last decade.
Right. Any other general fund contributions that happen to us happen through county services to our department. Like our IT department, they're general funded. They do all of our IT work. So, you know,
HR.
yeah.
So obviously we have contracted services, so we offer curbside to 6 different municipalities. We also have our leased drop site program. So those are private drop sites that different businesses pay for. We have a couple like Birchwood. And I don't know how many we have off the top of our head. Is it like 13, 20-ish?
More than 13, maybe not quite 20. It's somewhere in
Between
that
13 and
vicinity.
20. So we'll go with solid 15, 16 leased drop sites that businesses pay for. And we don't have actual agreements for the lease drop sites, but they do pay a per pole fee. And is there a fuel surcharge covered in that for the mileage?
Yeah, it does. It does take into account what on highway diesel prices are at the time that the quote is done.
Okay.
So
I think on average at minimum, those per pole fees are around $100 per pole. So like for instance, Birchwood, I believe, pays $100, but then you get up into legs in territory and they're paying $150 per pole to cover the cost of travel. The rate these fuel prices are going, we'll be riding bikes, pulling trailers.
It just depends on.
it just depends on what they're generating.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, definitely higher volumes in the summer, more frequent pulls. But in the wintertime, it slows down drastically for some of those businesses. We have our incentive pricing. Obviously, we have the pay as you throw mechanism built into our ordinance. So the more you throw away, the more you're going to pay. The less you throw away, the more you're going to save. So that type of just incentivizes recycling. So we subsidize a lot of the recyclables at the facility to incentivize people to bring those materials in and to keep them out of the landfill. Our transfer station revenues, I will say, we have a split. So the transfer station revenues cover when the sales of recyclables are low. So as you know, the markets change. So transfer station revenues also help cover our compost facility and our HHW program, because those two do not cover their own costs currently. Grant funds, we also use state grant funds quite regularly and local. We're not really applying for federal grants, just with the EPA and not knowing where this administration sits. It's just not worth, I think, our time or efforts right now to be applying for federal funding, because you don't know if you're going to receive them. I'm not saying that it's not possible, because you have managed to secure some federal funding through the EPA Swiffer grant, which I think is
A little bit, but we also lost a lot after already being awarded the funds.
Oh.
So, yeah, it may be a little bit of a waste of time to apply.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't know that either.
Yeah, but that's a different story. But
Was the funding just cut?
yeah, the federal government basically just said never mind to those contracts that are already signed.
Okay. So we had applied for Swiffer funding both in the first cycle and the second cycle, and we didn't get through either
Those
one.
funds were not full, but we had to remove any mention of climate.
Ah, yes. Yeah, climate DEI.
right?
Yeah, the 2 words you don't use anymore. However, we are pretty on top of Eagles funding opportunities. They do, I think, 2 different grant cycles each year, one for recycling infrastructure and one for organics. So depending on the year and what we have project wise, we're not hesitant to apply for Eagle funding and provide a 20% match for those. We also utilize local grant funding through the Petoskey Harbor Springs Area Community Foundation at least once a year. They also have 2 cycles each year. They have a spring one and a fall one. So those grants typically only cover up to $10,000, but it's really useful when you have many things like HHW events, then they're happy to contribute towards. They've contributed towards event recycling funds for infrastructure for those types of things. They also helped with the investment of our MRF when we got the robots. So just depending on the types of projects, we utilize those funds as well. So, and I know that the graph is really tiny. on that screen.
Are the events all in kind donations or?
No, so depending on the event, so obviously like we do event recycling for Bliss Fest. I think that we invoice them like around $6,000 by the time it's all said and done. We have a different tiered structure for event recycling. So if somebody wants to come in and utilize the infrastructure, but they don't want to pay for it, they have to come out to the facility, they pick it up, and then they are required to bring back all of the recyclables and the infrastructure themselves. If they want to pay, or if they're happy to like to pay for it, we can offer drop off and pickup. That's a separate fee. And then we also have a third tier where if they don't want their hands involved and they want to pay us to do it, we offer that as well. So it's just based on what their needs are and what they're willing to pay.
I will comment just for historical purposes, when I was first hired in setting up the program a zillion years ago, the theory, the operating goal was to have the sale of recyclables fund half the operating costs of the recycling program, with the other half covered by transfer station fees, the surcharge. And what we worked really hard on over those first couple of decades was diversifying the revenue sources. So this is an example of success of doing that, because sale of recyclables, 45% in 2021, that held for a long time that recycling was covering half the cost. You're never going to see it cover all the costs. You can't rely on the markets, but look at how other things have filled in 2025 as sale of recyclables maybe are in a downward cycle right now. At
They
least for
certainly
some
are.
materials that are pretty prevalent. You have all these other funding sources. So it's really quite a testament to the resiliency of the program over time.
Yeah, like waste transfer revenues remained at about 12%, even like with a four-year gap
And the
there.
revenue, because I know so that's interesting.
Right.
Just because your volume's gone up at the transfer station, hasn't it? So 12%, that number should be higher than that number. So I would look at that. If your transfer station volume's really gone up, what's
They really have.
what's not, like that
And
number
the
should be
cost?
higher.
Yeah, there's something off
The
there.
12% coming over
Oh, yeah.
should be higher
Yeah.
if there's more volume from 21 to 25.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that too. That's definitely off.
And like the center recycling fees at 11% now, and back in the day, Brown was like 2%. So that's this compost related and miscellaneous. So maybe it's not.
The
compared
yellow
apples to
one
apples.
was 7%, it's just a different color.
Uh-huh.
So
So it's like, oh, it makes
from 7 to 11, which again is great. You know, the more contracted services to cover costs, the better.
Probably because Jan is putting kids in there.
Yeah, I think it's really quite remarkable. However, there are questions for discussion. Are fees covering costs? Are some fee centers covering losses in others? Now, historically, that was by design. We knew there were things that were important to get out of the waste stream, like toxics, you know, HHW, that's a lot of money going out. And, you know, just donations coming in typically. So just being aware of those and accountable to them, like where are those funds getting drawn from? It makes sense it's coming from the transfer station because that material otherwise would go to landfill, which is where you don't want it, right? So it makes sense for those, you know, a portion of those transfer station solid waste fees to cover HHW. Also, anytime you start a new pilot, if you want to pilot a thing, a new thing, maybe that it's not going to draw its own revenue for a period of time. So, question about the fuel surcharge, obviously under our current situation with rice.
Yeah, what's the prediction for fuel surcharge increase for June? Like, is it gonna be significant?
It's gonna be big.
Okay.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it. I haven't
Because
looked.
the diesel that you're buying is like from last month, so your current like.
I think
charge-
the current fuel surcharge right now is what, 283?
It's 311.
311.
It's higher than
April was 283. So
311
311.
May, and June will be even higher, right?
Mhm. So I wonder if our revenues for the waste transfer station are down because of our capital improvement projects from last year, because I know those,
Our
we,
capitals don't come out of that, do they?
I mean, technically.
Well,
Technically,
If your costs,
because our costs, our expenditures would have outweighed our revenues at that point, because I think we spent
Oh,
like 400,000 on roofing repairs.
Revenue should be revenue, so it shouldn't be your.
Right.
P&L,
shouldn't be
it should your
capital,
revenue.
capital doesn't
Yeah,
pay
that's
revenue.
not your profit.
I have to look at these.
Yeah.
Are there any other
Okay,
questions
well,
on our
there
budget?
is a next slide. If we're ready to go to that, which talks about you're covering your costs well now. If that is the case, you feel like you've got a good system, but what about funding needs for proposed upgrades, expansions, new programs? And so just curious what, because again, if you don't name it in the plan, you might have someone say, you can't do that. You didn't plan for it. So for instance, if there was the opportunity, say the state got some federal windfall that passed down to counties and the county was flush with money and was looking to hand it out, you know, would general fund be, you know, an opportunity for funding? What about a millage for either operations or capital improvement for something new? Additional contract for service opportunities, additional grant opportunities. So you want to name the things that you could see as possible in the future.
Have you guys thought about sponsorship opportunities for like your household hazardous waste events?
No,
Something special?
I don't think we have. That's a good idea.
I'm trying to think how businesses can benefit by promoting their brand in line with what you're trying to do, so that you get some monetary benefit as well.
The only thing I can think of that we've had any sort of like sponsorship, and it really wasn't even sponsorship, is when we did the robots. We had the Carton Council,
Yes.
different end markets contributed like $25,000 funds. We are still reporting on some of those. So, and that was 7 years ago. That they provided, so they called them a grant, but it was really more of a sponsorship because they provided funds knowing that they would be able to access data on like cartons and different materials that are coming down the line. Did we have anyone outside of the Carton Council? There was a Carton Council and then the Food Packaging Institute.
There were 15 different asks and we got 15 yeses.
Yeah.
So it was a long list. We actually did a sponsor like party when the kind of launched. So it was a big lift. A ton of work was done by the entire staff to make that happen. But yeah, I think absolutely you could consider, you know, depending on what your new service opportunity was. I think there are folks that would be glad to have their name on that as well. Yeah, great. I just added it to the bottom.
they also had talked about HHW fundraising being like you're similar to a voucher system that we have with the townships municipalities, having them help to
Skin in the teeth.
Yeah.
Skin in the game.
get in the game, yeah.
Zoo runs that way. There are other programs that run that way as well. I do want to note time. We were
Okay.
thinking we would spend an
Oh,
hour
yeah.
on the goals, and we only have a half hour left.
I have a question about funds. Are we a new fund like by statute? Like what if we wanted to do millage or ask for general funds, it would give the setup of the organization, the operation and change?
Yeah, so it's really, so DPW is an enterprise fund. Public Works,
Enterprise fund.
yes, Public Works are separate from all of the departments as recognized by the state, but it can be constrained by the county board. So Emmet County's DPW is more constrained than it necessarily needs to be. The state says DPW under Act 185 can set their own budgets, which Emmet County, the DPW does write its own budget, but it goes to the county board for approval. Based on how the bylaws are written, that's required, but the bylaws could be changed. So there's a ton of autonomy for boards of public works and departments of public works under Act 185. And you're currently operating under the Board of Commissioners. And so looking at this DPW's bylaws would tell you what the specific constraints are, but there's a lot of room to grow within that. And I believe one of those is that the DPW potentially could bond itself. Now, this county is not going to want that. They're going to want it to go through the county, but knowing that the capacity and the potential is there in state law. So lots of,
I mean, we're told every day what we can and cannot spend.
Oh, yeah.
It's a present. Not nobody.
I mean,
it is.
getting her hand slapped over business.
So provide the relationship with the commission needs to say, and with the administration. But there are a lot of counties downstate where they're, like a Washington or something, they have a lot of oomph to make things happen. So, yeah. Okay, we are gonna fly, I think, through, I do think it's a choice. Yeah.
We have one slide.
Yep, one slide. So things that we have happening right now, myself and Natalie have attended several different workshops regarding education for our residents. So we attended Master Recycler down in Lansing through the Michigan Recycling Coalition in December, and then we created a program here. We just completed that. We offered 12 hours of education through the college. We received a grant for that. And what is happening is we're building a volunteer base out of it. We had 25, we sold out 25 attendees, and they're all emailing me every day with what they're doing with their volunteer time, the information they're sharing with their friends and family and neighbors. So we're excited to launch that. They will be at all of our events throughout the summer. So we're delighted to have them. We're going to do something similar for Master Composter in the fall. And then through several of the workshops I've attended, it has become apparent that we need to get back into direct mailers to reach the most amount of people with our messaging and what's offered. And then real-time feedback that we're getting, phone calls to our office. We're finding out what materials and questions people have, and then we can not only, of course, address those on the phone, but then to the greater public through our different channels. And then we ask our recycle processors, what are you seeing come across the line, and let's address those issues of contamination. So those are just a few of the things that we're doing. I'd love any feedback about where you guys are receiving your information, where we need to be appearing and what messages need to be more apparent. I'm always open to that information.
And don't forget, you organized on the fly an amazing repair cafe.
That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Very successful.
So those repair cafes, which usually are hosted at libraries, in this case, you and some of your colleagues that you've been networking with on refill and reuse were like, okay, let's do this. Let's host this event at the Carnegie Building in Petoskey, and so many people showed up and so many volunteers with it. It was really a really awesome event, and I love to see that. That's fun. Take its own life on again. And it sounds like the library is a really good place to maybe consider hosting those again. They do their programming so far out. It was
Yeah.
So congratulations on that.
Incredible.
The class was awesome too. I've heard a lot of great feedback from people in our community that are really.
It was a wonderful group of people.
Yeah.
Very engaged and asking questions and then want to take that further. So it was.
Are you going to do it again?
I would love to do that every year.
Yes.
And from the survey feedback, it looked like a lot of them were so composting workshop, recycling, composting class, what's next?
Yeah, which will be great in advancing all of our goals with food waste abatement. So that's exciting.
And I do think Eagle's going to have an food scrap grant in addition to a compost infrastructure grant. So there are two coming out soon, not just one. So keep an eye out for that.
Cool.
Okay, so we have 26 slides on goals. And so some of this might have to go into June. It depends how we want to approach it. So let's maybe go to the next slide so you see an example of what this looks like. As stated at the beginning of the meeting, this is just a general sort of temperature check. Right? We came up with these together. Are we all still good with them? Let's do a quick vote. Let's move on. These are still going to come back. They're going to get wordsmith, refined. Staff might learn new things they want to incorporate and bring back as added goals or objectives under the goals. But the thought is revisit in just like 30, 40 seconds, like this is what we said we want to do in relation to commercial, institutional, industrial, and then the next 2 slides are a vote for each goal. So just like a quick up and down. What do you think, Ashley, in terms of like how many we want to try to get to and how to go through this? We just start and see how it goes.
Let's just start and go through it.
Perfect. Okay.
I have feedback on goal number 1 because we have already done the complete a parallel study to inform on the recycling not captured by Emmet County. I'm wondering if that goal needs to be something like every 2 years, complete a parallel study to keep a temperature on the recycling rate in the county versus complete a, because we did that. So we did that in January, and all of you have one of these as well. Again, this is just for the high level information of the goals. All of the targets and objectives underneath the goal will be brought in at a later date. We just want to make sure that the temperature on all of these is still accurate. So that would be my suggestion on goal number 1 is to complete a parallel study every 2 years or biannually or every other year, just to keep an understanding of what that recycling rate looks like in the county. And I think the more you engage with those outside businesses, the better response rates you get if you keep pestering them. I like to pester.
Well, yeah, if you do it every other year,
Yeah.
it's your contacts.
Yeah.
Be pretty consistent.
Is that a third-party study you're talking about?
So this is that the business studies that we sent out to help capture data on the recycling rate. So yeah, so
Voluntary.
yep.
Home Depot, like their backhaul to a central distribution area for their pallet wrap and their pallets. And
So it's anything that's just not captured in our system. So it's all good data to have because it helps boost our recycling, right?
Right. 11:39 a.m.
So, let's go down to the voting on these 2. And just- So here's complete a parallel study every 2 years. And
All those in favor. say
Do we
aye.
want motions or do we just want to do a vote just to make sure we're,
it's like, is it
Yeah.
consensus?
Yeah.
Anyone have issues?
is everybody still okay with this goal and the edits that we make to it? Okay. Goal number 2 was downtown self-serve cardboard compactor, and establish a county-run commercial cardboard route banning commercial corrugated cardboard from disposal. And the ban, I think, was an alternative. So if for some reason we couldn't get a commercial cardboard route, we could look at a ban on cardboard in the waste stream.
That would be a name.
I know.
On the ban or on the cardboard compactor?
Well, it's
Both.
all right. Yeah.
So the goal, I think, so when we had talked about a downtown self-serve cardboard compactor, it was at one of our drop sites. So we had talked about establishing 2 of them within the county potentially, or in I think the idea behind that was one maybe like at the Bear Creek drop site where we have cardboard on the ground every single day. So it would help reduce that and it would help keep the drop sites cleaner. And then we had also talked about one up in Mackinac City because of the volume of cardboard during the summertime up there and not having access to like cardboard route. What'd you say?
And the space limitations.
Space. Yeah.
It almost seems like these are 3 completely different.
Yeah.
I think you have to pull it apart and tell.
Pull them apart. Okay.
I'm not for a county-run commercial route or ban on the residents, the commercial businesses. Who's the arbiter of that, right? Who, is it one piece of cardboard, is it?
Right.
There, it's just too open-ended. And I think we can do education, not penalties would be.
Education and incentives if possible.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think kind of comes into also the question, I mean, I'm not surprised that Waste Management and GFL are opposed to a county-run commercial cardboard route or a ban, and I understand that politically, and that's the hat that you're wearing here at the table. I think alternatively is like, where's the incentive, like not do a ban? So will there be further investment in collection routes that would expand throughout our communities to cover that? If the private sector can and will and is able to invest in that, then that becomes the opportunity. And if not, then government steps into filling a gap, I think is.
My biggest concern on it is the ban, that you're gonna force an individual to tell them what.
Commercial.
Yeah. But even if you're-
So-
So we obviously that's for that service, so you're gonna tell a small business owner, you have to do this, well.
And-
That's kind of.
So when you look at the goal on the layout of it, the ban is if recovery goals were not attained, was to be assessed. So I think up here, the top part, you're right that those shouldn't be broken out that way. The goal initially that we had created was by 2027, add one compactor either in Petoskey or Mackinac City for residential and business recycling to utilize for cardboard collection. Option one was the city of Petoskey, Mackinac City to provide convenient options for small businesses. It's also more efficient for operations to haul cardboard, maybe a compactor at city DPW to help keep up with the volume, limited requests for cardboard services. Big Stone Bay has offered to host as a site. The casino now in Mackinac City would also be a good partner. Those are just notes from that one. The commercial cardboard route alternative 2, if you cannot find host for compactors, big capital outlay, Eagle Grant could support a commercial cardboard route if we needed to. So those were alternatives to creating drop site capacity. So if we could get those compactors up in Mackinac City and Petoskey to help with the volume issues, then we wouldn't need to do the commercial cardboard route or a ban. The ban, gaps in commercial services, we would hope would be collected by the private sector. If they're not, how can we fill that gap? The ban was the third alternative. So we had said by 2035, if recovery goals are not attained, we would assess maybe looking at a ban on commercial cardboard to help keep that from the waste stream.
You go carrot, 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 and then you come in with the state.
Yeah. So-
Theoretically speaking, how would you enforce that?
That's
So we
another
have-
thing. That's
we
Yeah,
have-
the enforcement mechanisms behind that are so far out anyways.
So
That wasn't even a discussion until 2035 on a ban on commercial cardboard, and that we can address that, and if it needs to be removed, it can be removed. But the idea behind this goal number 2 was to create or look at an established downtown cardboard compactor for the really busy sites. It wasn't to go ahead and create a commercial cardboard route immediately or put a ban on commercial cardboard. It was, how do we assess the volumes of cardboard that are coming in and to make sure that they're not ending up in the waste stream?
It makes more sense for the goal to be about increasing OPC diversion rates versus.
Yes.
Okay.
This is good. This is a really.
Yeah. I like these discussions. This is very helpful.
Yeah, totally.
Consider options such as.
And we did have under education, an education campaign on cardboard to go with this, and then to evaluate recovery potential, cost, revenues of each approach. So doing waste audits, looking at our own compactor as materials coming in to assess cardboard volumes. And if we can partner with your drivers and understand on like where that volume is coming from, so we can tailor education to those businesses.
Yeah, and right now there's opportunities for us to do expansion of that, because right now the solid waste ordinance says like all waste haulers have to provide commercial cardboard recycling at a reduced rate for their existing customers. And whether or not, like, we don't have a mechanism for enforcement of that other than like just good faith and public-private partnerships. Okay.
So we'll keep working on that one.
frankly, we would love for people to get the cardboard out.
Yeah.
To reduce our cost at the transfer as well, you know, perhaps. That space savings
Well, and I mean,
Yeah.
that still boosts our recycling rate, regardless of who's getting the cardboard, whether you're taking it out of county or you're taking it out of county. As long as we can get those volumes, the data totals, it boosts our recycling rate. We're all benefiting, so.
If this is what I would vote yes for this one.
Okay.
So I think if we pulled the commercial run cardboard route by the county and pulled the ban out and just consider options to increase
OCC
diversion rates, including self-serve cardboard compactors at existing drop-off sites, would there be consensus on that? Excellent.
Yeah.
Let's go with that. Love it.
Is there a need to know how much, like something that, draft that RS put together, like some of the commercial recycling rates were unknown? Do we know, does the county know how much these guys are recycling cardboard?
Yes, in the
Okay,
reporting, in the quarterly reporting.
Okay, so that's.
Is that
Is that just waste?
Oh,
Is that captured?
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
been included.
Waste management brings it to us because they don't have any place else to bring it to, whereas GFL might choose to bring it to their single stream MRF. And they have the right to do that, because there's no thing saying that we're flow control and recycling.
Excellent. Okay. So I think
Thank
it's
you.
great. Increase diversion rates, and we have consensus on one of the 3 points. Beautiful. Let's move on to multifamily. There is only one goal.
Okay, so to extend multifamily recycling services in existing curbside communities, consider an ordinance, and that was that conversation around the planning and zoning requirements to build in when new developments are happening, that they build in for infrastructure for bins like they do waste. And then responsibility on the private multifamily owners to provide the services, saying, so if you're going to provide like waste, you also have to provide recycling.
Yeah, the ones in Petoskey are a really good example of what we have right now, Maple Block and Lost at Lumber Square. Lost, small enough, we've got recycling bins set up there. Maple Block and Victory Square, both partnering with GFL and single streams. So, yeah, in terms of expanding that, definitely Bear Creek Township is our lowest hanging fruit, where there is a lack of collection infrastructure and potentially like proposed drop sites on site. For anything over 100 units, you have to have compactor, trash compactor probably, or enclosures. And then, yeah, we just can't meet the capacity with curbside recycling carts right now to handle multifamily recycling. So that's where drop site recycling becomes an option of leasing those bins, but you have to have the space for it. Takes up about 2 parking spaces, right? Which is, parking spaces are coveted in a zoning situation, so, yeah, I'm wondering about how to formalize that in terms of potentially policy. Saying that multifamily units are required, anything over what? I don't know, maybe.
Well, that's that consider ordinance planning and zoning requirements for new site development.
Yeah.
So building it into an ordinance and
So
working with.
we're consider maybe promote an ordinance, like consider it's kind of vague and like what,
We shall.
Could
We shall.
you be, or like it would be like county or possibly township ordinances, so you could, I don't know, just promoting them would be the way to do that rather than considering, I don't know, just a wordsmithing kind of.
Yeah.
I agree.
But do we like the general tone of increasing access for multifamily recycling?
Yeah, I think the key word is new. Recycling developments. This is not something on visiting, yeah.
Yeah, that way they build around it. And give them the opportunity to plan.
But I do think even having access available for multifamily that don't currently have it is important too. We don't want to exclude them just because they're not new. So I don't know if that can tie into some sort of promotion under that ordinance is, new and existing
What is the
multifamily.
baseline for multifamily? Where's the minimum?
5 and up, right? Well, it depends.
Sure. Yeah, multifamily is usually, 6 units and above, but I don't
Did you
think
say
we're-
they were
Yeah,
60?
6.
Oh,
6.
six.
like where you take a single family house and you convert it and like Hotel Del Rey right now, it's like on
Downtown.
Emmet Street. Yeah. And I think that's because multifamily is traditionally like the hardest environment in which to do recycling, especially in a page and throw community. But I agree that this is a great goal, and I would vote yes. Because I don't think there's anything contentious in there. It's once again like carrot, and getting in zoning requirements and planning and zoning requirements is a huge thing for us. That's like kind of a new territory. So that would feel conducive to like the next 10 years of planning. It's like, oh, we need to get good at this part.
Could we add a second goal under multifamily for existing? Or would you want to have a target for existing?
Instead of an existing curbside.
I think I would say under the goal where it says increase access to and recycling from multifamily, do we say increase access to new and existing multifamily units? Remember, this is the overarching goal, and then there will be different targets and objectives underneath it. So, because I don't want to like.
I have just a minor technicality kind of point that it's really about all of these, but this one in particular made me think of it. But when mentioning, creating these policies or regulations for recycling, I think it might be useful to specify that it's not just cardboard recycling and that it is intended for recycling of all. Well, yeah, I mean, and that would be tricky too, not all materials, right? Not really all materials, but just,
To follow the
specify
Emmet County dual stream recycling.
Yeah. Because if you do have a policy that says you have to recycle, some may say, well, I'm recycling cardboard and then they stop there.
Yep, good point.
Good point.
Your consensus.
Yeah.
Excellent. Next.
So
Yes.
I'm just looking. I'm like, how many? I think we only have one residential curbside recycling goal.
Stop here.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. And then we'll carry on in the next meeting through these. Yeah, there are 12 goals, so we made it through 2.5, 3. It's all good.
Great conversation though. I think really helpful to hear. The very viewpoints. You'll have a better product as a result.
Yes. Yeah, I enjoy the conversation and the feedback. It was very helpful. All right. Well, do we have any committee feedback outside of the MMP goals? So it looks like in June we'll continue on with this conversation. This was great. Our June meeting is Tuesday the 9th. It will be here. I assume we'll be back in the regular room, although I like this room too. This is fine. Tight. Just a little snug. Are you warm? You're always warm. Do we have any other wrap up comments, or I don't think we have any public comment? No. Okay.
This could be public comment, I guess. So I got 3 things to promote. I'm putting on my community planner hat. So, this is directed towards local government, so or tax exempt entities, so it includes tribal governments. So I am an ambassador through the state of Michigan Infrastructure Office for their elective pay program. Elective pay is essentially a tax credit for tax exempt entities if they install clean energy technology. And I'm just here to say that's still around, and I'm here to help if you're looking at installing solar, geothermal, battery energy storage, EV chargers up through June 30th of this year. So you could get 40 to maybe 50, 60% back. You can combine it with grants. The availability of tax credits, for solar is going away if you don't put the project in service by the end of 2027. Okay. So, any questions about that, please let me know. The second thing in line with that is that if you're looking at possibly, doing capital improvement projects, if you're looking at, like, you don't know where to start with solar, there is, Michigan Energy Options is, an agency in Michigan that got a grant actually from Eagle recently. And then it's to provide tax exempt entities free technical assistance with scoping for solar projects. So if you don't know where to start, if you're just looking at your site and like, you know, what is the ROI, I just don't know. This guy can help you for free. Okay. So it's like a free assessment.
Solar panels on the new roof.
I know.
Getting ready to do the other half of the roof right
So
now.
I'm currently, you know, I'll give you his contact info.
Yeah.
And then the third thing is that there is an Eagle grant currently open. It's called the Community Energy Management Program Grant. There's no match. And this is between $5,000 and $50,000 awarded. The applications are open online. And it's essentially if you're going to do any energy efficiency building improvements, or assessments, for that, and it can include clean energy projects as well, so it can tie in with solar and all that stuff, so some free money available.
Cool.
Yeah.
Also, the next cycle seed grant just opened, that's up to $10,000 for any sort of project, pilot, startup, analysis, and there is no match required, and there's some money available in advance of the 10,000. So that's another good one available.
Thank you.
And that's for both public and private sector. That's available.
And our next meeting is June 9th.
Tuesday, June 9th. Which is coming up sooner rather than later because it's already the middle of May. So this is a great spot because we'll continue on. It'll probably take us an hour to get through the way the conversation's actually going. So bring your thinking caps because this is super helpful.
We'll have the virtual option again.
Yes. Yep. Yeah, for some reason you're never able to attend. We do have a virtual option. I just try to encourage in person because the conversation tends to go better when we're all in person.
Are you able to vote virtual?
No. So, if for some reason we have to do a motion during a meeting and you are virtual, you lose your ability to vote.
So we were operating.
But the way we're operating today, that would be fine. Nobody was voting. There were no motions. We were just doing consensus. But I don't know if at the end of that meeting, we'll need a motion to draft these into the first draft of the plan, but depending on how we run it,
Yeah.
we can
Initially,
finish that.
we'll be voting on the entire plan, but working section by section is an opportunity to get things flushed out in full and get the conversation to make sure it's refined to meet the interests of the committee.
Yep.
So,
You should be fine if you need to do virtual.
great.
I may not be able to attend at all, but I can.
I will get you the links. Perfect. Well, it is noon. Doug?
Let's chair, but during the meeting, we'll have 12 noon sharp.
Perfect. I'll see you at 2:30. I'll hear you at 2:30.
I met the director.
I signed them.